All right, welcome everybody to another edition of our Summit Sit Downs. This is a special Zoom to the Past edition that we're doing to celebrate our 40th year of the Summit League's existence. And we are looking back at some of our most memorable championships before that championship takes place this weekend. Cross country is going to be taking place in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And today we are joined by a trio from the South Dakota State men's cross country team that won the 2009 championship. We have Coach Rod DeHaven joining us. We have Greg Beesley and Greg Vollmer, who are both sophomores on that team, if I did my research correctly. So just appreciate you guys joining us. And if we can, just for introduction's sake, Coach, tell us what you've been up to, and then Greg can kind of fill in from there.
Well, much like Kiefer Sutherland in the show 24, I've been sitting in the same place for the last 10 years. So I'm still coaching, thankfully, and still trying to mend young men and women in the South Dakota State cross country and track and field program.
What about you, Greg Beesley?
Currently, I am working at Grand Falls Casino and Golf Resort as a marketing coordinator after spending some time in a couple different states working as a TV sports anchor.
And for me, when the pandemic started, I became a mover for Two Brothers Moving out here in Portland, Oregon, and I've worked my way up to crew supervisor, and I think it's been a blessing for keeping me in shape. I haven't been doing a lot of running, like I've said, anymore, but I get about 30 to 50,000 steps in a day doing this job now, and I think my cross country history and background definitely helps me get through some of the long moving days. So I'm moving and just enjoying the now rainy season of the Pacific Northwest.
That's a lot of steps.
It is. It's a lot.
That usually takes me about 2 months at my job, so that's pretty impressive. So let's rehash. Let's go back, zoom back to the past in 2009. Coach DeHaven, that was the first championship that you guys won on the men's side. Greg and Greg were both sophomores. I talked to Greg Beasley about it a little bit earlier. Just kind of everything came together, perfect race for you guys to get the W. So, Coach, what's your when you think back to 2009? What's your first memory?
Well, certainly a very exciting day for young men that were on the team and the program in general. And I think coming into that year, we were predicted to be fifth out of the 10 teams that were going to participate in the championships. And the mountain seemed pretty hard to climb, literally, because we were going to also contend that championships in Cedar City, Utah at 6,000 feet. And, the likelihood that a sea level team was going to dethrone the favorite seemed pretty slim. But I was pretty confident heading into the season that we wouldn't be fifth in the league. And I think on the media day that I was allowed to participate in, I said something to the fact that if we're fifth in the league, I'll take all the broken beer bottles from our homecoming celebration, which was Hobo Day, and run barefoot over them, for at least a quarter of a mile. And thankfully the fellas, ran very well on that day and during that season. And I think coming into it, we knew we had a chance. Southern Utah had an incredible program. Certainly they were the model, the Cadillac that everyone aspired to within the Summit League. And it just looked like there were cracks in the armor as the season progressed. And we felt like if we could run smart on that day, we might be able to pull it off. And we kind of let them go out and dictate like they typically did in those days. And we stayed close enough to, kind of come back and run people down and end up winning by 3 points. And again, nobody was as shocked as I was.
But you seem confident with the whole Hobo Days story there. So
I knew we weren't going to get fifth, but
I forgot about the Hobos Day wager.
I did too.
Totally forgot about
I completely forgot about that as well.
So your coach was confident, maybe not to win it, but to be better than you guys were predicted. So for the two Gregs here, maybe start with you, Greg Beasley. What was your kind of mindset going into that championship?
Very similar to Coach DeHaven. I was very confident we weren't going to be fifth. We were going to be up there. I want to say about 2 weeks before that, we were in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and we performed pretty well against a pretty good La Crosse team and a couple of teams there. And that's kind of when I thought we might have a pretty good shot at this. I think Vollmer and I ran well. Anthony Blue Bongard ran well. Mike Kersnack ran well. And Marshall Cambusted ran well. And Jake Schneller, who cross country really wasn't his bag. Like
Jake the Snake.
Yeah, he was more of a mile 800 guy, but he was hanging on to like Greg and I and Anthony, and it was like, okay, we might have a shot at this thing here. We ran pretty well about 2 weeks beforehand, and then that's about when I knew that we had a shot to take down the defending champions, or at least compete very well.
Yeah, I think, looking back on it and the fact that it's been 12 years is pretty mind blowing. And Beesley and I were talking a little bit last night and just kind of reminiscing. And I think Rod has a great way to connect with his team, and he knows how to motivate like all great coaches do. And I think that he really, we had a chip on our shoulder individually, but going into that season, he did remind us, like he said, about the fact that we were predicted to get fifth. And I think that from the beginning of just getting into before the season started, as our training began, we used that as fuel. And I think for me, where I thought that everything clicked and I really thought that this was going to be a special season, was our invite, our Brookings Invitational. And that was a special meet just because we were starting to build momentum and just running as a pack and really staying as a pack. And I felt like that was really intimidating other teams and just using that to feed off each other. So I think that, and the cross meet was obviously huge, kind of a tune up, but I really think that invitational in Brookings that year, I just remember specifically just being in a pack and kind of starting that race and being together and trying to pick people off there in the second half as a team. That's really where I felt like it was going to be special.
I still have that picture of us from that meet. Like, is you, me, Blue, Kersnack, and Marshall. Didn't we go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7?
I believe we did. I felt like we were in like a flying V there for a while.
It was like the flying V coming around. Kansas State was there that year. I remember that.
Yeah, Nebraska was
They
there.
thought they were going to come in and just roll over us, and then we kind of came in and rolled over them.
Yeah, I think honestly, looking back on it now, it's like every week I felt like we did as a team gain a little bit more momentum. I feel like the chemistry that we had kind of just a mixed group of guys with different personalities, but we all ended up becoming really close leading into that year. And I mean, whether it was after practice going and getting dinner together at the mess hall, it was just, there was a special bond. And I think that was also as important what happened off the course, off during the times away from the meets that year, that also contributed to the special season. So it was just a really close group. We became really good friends outside of practice. And then I felt like every week we just gained a little bit more momentum, and it just kind of snowballed into that final meet in Cedar City.
Yeah, let's go to Cedar City, Coach. That maybe even race morning, like what was the vibe like? What was the strategy? What was the plan of attack?
Well, I think there's two things that kind of played into that year. That earlier that spring, we had an outdoor conference championship in Cedar City, and we had some issues. Had some sickness, and then being at altitude for a number of days, I think we really struggled. So we were fortunate to find a direct flight from Sioux Falls to Las Vegas, and we stayed in Las Vegas really to the last possible minute in terms of what the league required us to do. We had to come up for the banquet, so we didn't get to Cedar City until late. I think the course may have already closed technically by the time we got on it. Went to the banquet and then woke up that morning, and we were delayed due to frost. Unfortunately, we caught it early enough. I think I don't know if the men or the women were first that year, but I think the men were first, but I think they were still at the hotel. We were able to keep them at the hotel, or somehow we made it work. And, fortunately, even though these guys were relatively young, they showed maturity beyond their years in terms of dealing with, kind of that delay and not letting the anxiety of the moment get the best of them. Because I think sometimes in championships, you get so hyped up for these things that it becomes, almost a form of paralysis in terms of your ability to perform at the highest possible level. But the guys did really well, and the race plan was, as I mentioned earlier, let Southern Utah do what they do. I think they really thought they were going to go out and probably, put a really low number out there, like probably score 20, 30 points. And we'll see if we can run them down in the second half of the race. And specifically, I think we used a downhill portion heading back towards, kind of back towards the finish area, and started making that momentum. And you could really see it happening at that point. And it was, it didn't take long before the voice was quite strained.
Right. And looking back at the results, you guys had 5 guys in the top 20. Kersnack led the way, he finished 6th. And then Greg Vollmer, you were talking about that pack mentality. You guys, you and Greg kind of sandwiched Anthony Bongard between 10 and 12. So those are key places there. What would, like, when Garrett Iltz finished in 20th, like, did you guys know at that time that it was over, that you guys had won this thing? Or like, what was the suspense like when after the race was over and everybody's gassed and tired and like, did we really do this? Like, what are the memories there?
Go ahead, Beesley.
Yeah. I don't think we knew we won until we actually did. Like, until they kind of came through. I mean, Jared Benny, he was our 9th guy. So when he came flying through, it was like, where in the world did he come from? And he finishes in the top 20. And it's like, whew, okay, we may have done this thing. And we knew we had 4 in front of their 3. But it was more or less where 5, 6, and 7 were going to be and how many points we could put in front of Southern Utah at that point in time. Because like Coach DeHaven said, about the halfway point, we were not in the lead at any point in time. I think probably about 6,000 meters of an 8,000 race is maybe when we were in the lead. And I was talking to Greg about this last night. And Coach, maybe you can help clarify if you remember too, but I think Anthony was hurt. Like, Blue had a bad calf that year, and we didn't know what we were going to get out of him. And I had caught up to Greg, and then somebody had kind of come up to me, and I was trying to fire Greg up because we were going to have to make one more run at this thing because we thought Southern Utah.
I remember hearing Beesley right behind me, letting me know that him and Bongard were trailing me. They were with me. And then that gave me, because I kind of got myself in a little bit of no man's land in the second half for a little bit there mentally. And so when I heard, Beesley, and I knew they were trailing me, that was when I'm like, all right, I know they're going to follow. And at that last 1,000, just trying to slowly just pick people off. And then that downhill finish, we just rocketed into the finish line. And I remember, I mean, I didn't know until Franzen, came up to us with the points. We were all kind of just wondering. I just remember finishing, watching you finish, and Bongard right behind me, watching, Benny sprinted in, Marshall absolutely just sprinted in like crazy. And I just remember giving my mom a big hug, giving Jake a big hug, getting everybody hugs, and didn't really know until Franzen kind of walked up. And that was when everyone started to get real big smiles on their face. And it was pretty much elation from there.
It wasn't official until we were up there in my mind. I still couldn't believe it.
But it was key, like mentally listening, hearing your teammate behind you and letting them know that, letting me know that they were there. And then that's where you just dig deep. That last 1,000 is what separates the men from the boys. And it was a magical close finish. It was wild.
Yeah, I think the final tally was you guys finished with 59 points. Southern Utah had 64. And Oakland had 72, so there were actually 3 teams that were pretty tight there. What about you, Coach DeHaven? Like, you're the coach. Are you tracking where guys are finishing and trying to figure it out what's going on, or when did you finally realize that, hey, we did this thing, we're going to hoist that trophy?
Well, as the 2 Gregs know, that I was only a math minor, and yes, John Franzen, my graduate assistant coach, was much better at math than I was that year, and he did a really good job of calculating things at the finish line. And he was pretty confident that we had won before we'd actually gotten the paper copy of the results. And it was a program changing event, really. Because when I look back on this group of guys, there are a lot of South Dakota kids that trusted us, coming out of the, part of the transition from Division II to Division I. And I think a lot of people were skeptical of us having the ability to actually pull something like this off. And that was really a huge catalyst for where our program is today. And, again, those young men that were a part of it, whether they were the 9th guy or the first guy, all had an impact on that. And, their spirit trickled over for the next, few years, and that tradition is carried on. And just a huge deal. So it's tons of fun and fun to look back on that. And I think they were also influenced a little bit by the women winning the year before in a very close fashion. I think it was only a couple points that the women won by in Shreveport, and they didn't want to be left out of the party, so they took care of business in Cedar City.
That's really cool. I got one more question for Greg and Greg, but I have two. But I want to know how important the hair game was in 2009, because Greg Vollmer, you have quite the mohawk going, and then I think Greg Beesley's going for the Teen Wolf look. So
yeah.
Yep.
Vollmer, I'll let you start with that.
The mohawk, I think one thing that I was missing in my high school career was having a bit of an edge to me. I think I ran pretty tentative, and I didn't have a whole lot of confidence until my senior year in high school. And coming to SDSU and being coached by Rod and being amongst teammates that were my rivals for the most part, which is a special thing about this group, is it was a lot of rivals that were always competing at state. And we all came together as a team, and it became a great group of leaders and men. And I got a mohawk going into my sophomore year, and it kind of became a little bit of an alter ego for me. It just gave me a little bit of an edge, gave me a little bit of confidence, and so I went with it, and I felt good with it, and so it became my kind of staple for I guess a few years at least, and it kind of helped me when I did the war cry to rile up the guys pre-huddle before the race. So
you wore it well.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, and for me, like, I always had long hair. Throughout high school, I had long hair. I had this theory that when I was running well, I wasn't really changing a whole lot about myself. So there would be times where I wouldn't shave, the hair would go. So like, I had what my father lovingly calls the full Amish beard, because it was growing in patches at that point in time. And it's like, maybe probably shouldn't have done all of that. But I had that long hair for the longest time, and then when you go into TV news, they kind of want you to cut that. So I had to go with a little bit more style nowadays. And
you have the cross country playoff beard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We were going full beards. Like,
Fair enough.
that was a hobo day beard.
Gotta have the playoff beard.
Yeah.
So the last thing I just want to hear from you guys before we wrap this up is, and Coach DeHaven kind of mentioned, program changing championship in 2009, and you guys laid the foundation. So the Jacks are going for their 10th men's cross country title on Saturday coming up. They've won 5 in a row. No team in Sun League history has ever won 6 in a row, so they got that going for them. And Southern Utah is the only other team that's won 5 in a row. So what is it, looking back 12 years ago, what does it mean to you guys to have been part of that foundation?
I can go first. I wasn't very sought after, being recruited out of high school. And I'm just happy. I'm grateful that Rod noticed me, that he took a chance on me, that he thought I'd be able to help contribute. And yeah, I mean, the special chemistry that we had in 2009 and able to go back to back like we did. And then, yeah, to everything goes by so fast. And then I haven't kept up to touch, real close every single year, but I knew that Rod continued to build a special program after that. And that's not only a testament to the runners that he brought in, while we were there, but also continuing to do what he did after we left, and continuing to keep people hungry to compete and to stay motivated. And so, I mean, to have continued success like he's done is absolutely unbelievable. And I feel grateful and honored and humbled to have been a part of that, to help build that momentum.
Yeah, it's something similar to what Greg just said for me as well. My high school, when I was running, was not what one would call a powerhouse. My sophomore year, I got 3rd in the state cross country meet, and we ended up 13th out of 16 teams with 3 points. So to be a part of something that has grown and continues to grow, and you're the first ones to do it, it it means the world to me. And when Greg and I were talking last night, it's still top 5 best moments of my life was being a part of that team that year, and the teams after as well. You know, being a Jackrabbit meant the world to me, and still does. I still am proud to say that I was a South Dakota State Jackrabbit. I ran for Coach DeHaven, and we helped start that whole dynasty. Is a word that gets thrown around a lot. I think in this case, it's well deserved, and coaches continue to build it on. And us as guys who went through the program are still proud to be part of that program a little bit. I'm a little bit more well-rounded than I was before, but if I could, I'd still get out there and try and run some.
That's great. You know, this is why I wanted to do these Zooms to the Past and just kind of bring some guys back together that maybe hadn't connected in a while, and just kind of rehash some great memories that they've had in their life. And I know, Coach DeHaven, I'll give you one final chance to just kind of speak to these 2 young men and what kind of program you've built and what you have to look forward to on Saturday.
Well, can I speak to Alex Lohr's teeth after looking at that picture again? How white they were. And
I still think they're pretty white, Coach.
Yeah,
They're probably still pretty white.
He
Yeah,
did.
Alex has got the best teeth ever. I mean, maybe I'll trade a couple of those championship medals for Alex's teeth.
I know, right?
Sweet. Well, guys, hey, this was a great time to catch up. Great time to get to, actually for me to get to kind of hear the stories from 2009. I wasn't around the Summer League back then, but hopefully just being able to share your stories and get some people excited for the 2021 cross country championship. Certainly appreciate you guys being a part of the Summit League in the past and keeping up with what's going on in the future too. So really appreciate it. Good luck to you guys in your future endeavors, and Coach, good luck to you on Saturday.